Oh, I wanted to ask you how you came across the rings, the Lugosi's ring and the scarab, Karloff's mummy ring.
Sheffield befriended Bela, and he did everything he could to make his last days comfortable. He went to the store for him. He got his favorite Cuban cigars and took him to get his shoes resoled, just everything he could. And bit by bit, Bela, realizing he was not long for this world, began to give things to the young fellow. He gave him a pen, some poetry he had written when he was a young man in love with a girl in Hungary.
Wow.
And eventually he gave Richard Sheffield the ring. Well, after Lugosi died, Sheffield realized the ring was kind of lost to the world. Nobody ever visited him or interviewed him or anything. And so finally he was willing to let me have the ring. The scarab ring, Phil Riley was walking past an antique shop in Santa Monica and he saw the ring. It wasn't identified at all, but he thought, I believe I've seen that ring on Karloff's finger. So he came and he checked my stills, and lo and behold, there was the ring on the finger. If the owner had known it would belong to Karloff, he probably put a fancy price on it, but fortunately he didn't attach any special value to it. So Phil Riley bought it and gave it to me.
It's really nice of him. And how did you come across the gauze, mummy gauze?
Again, Phil Riley befriended the curator out at the, don't just recall the name of the institute, but that institute has a whip from the Son of Zorro that Doug Fairbanks had, and has a wig from Mary Pickford, and the wig that Lon Chaney wore in Unholy 3, and all kind of things from motion picture personalities. What was the question?
The mummy gauze.
Oh, and they also gave Phil little, about a yard of it. I cut off one piece and attached it to a lobby card of the mummy, and somebody promptly stole it. But I saved that piece.
You had a lot of things stolen through the years.
I should say.
And you kept your door
open. The craziest was stealing half of the Atlanta submarine.
And how did somebody make off with that?
It was very heavy. It must have taken 4 or 5 people. A year or so ago, it turned up in a junk yard.
Really? And you couldn't get it back? Where's the other half now? Do you still have that?
A good question. Any place, I guess, is in storage.
Yeah, it's a shame that people abuse your hospitality, because you open your door to virtually strangers, and to have people, steal from you, it's not right. What was the worst thing that you've ever lost? What is the worst thing you think that you've ever been stolen from you?
I think it was a beautiful, original, large color painting by Hannes Bach.
Taken right off the wall?
And then by Ray Harryhausen, I had a statue of a woman on the front of a boat that came to life and ran around on the boat.
Oh, was that from the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad? Or
Yeah,
Jason and the Argonauts?
that was stolen.
That was Jason and the Argonauts, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was stolen.
How is Ray doing? Harryhausen. I heard he was in town recently.
He's getting along fine, yeah.
Where does he live now?
London.
And how's James Warren? You see James?
He's okay.
He's in New York?
No, in New Jersey. His mother recently celebrated her 100th birthday.
All right. I want to come to this year's. I'm sorry I didn't make your last birthday. I was going to come down, and some things came up at the last minute, and I couldn't make it. But definitely send me your invite for the number 90. I'm going to be there. Is that going to be at the Friars Club?
I don't know. I recently was at what's called the Golden Saturn Awards evening. It was in the Universal Studios Hilton Hotel. I'm anticipating about 300 people, and if the Hilton can accommodate 300 for a banquet, I would prefer that.
That's where you're hoping to do it?
So we'll see, but as a last resort, it'll be at the Friars again.
So any last words that you want to say about the collection, the old house, the future of...
I'm very honored that Vincent Price gave me his last autograph. It occurred to me that everybody gives a last autograph, but they're not necessarily aware of it at the time, and they die shortly after. But Vincent was so near the end of his life that he decided he would sign one more time and call it quits.
Right.
Did you on TV ever see a character named Brother Theodore?
I know who he is, but I never really saw him on TV. Brother Gottlieb? How do you say his last name?
Theodore Gottlieb.
Gottlieb.
He was saved from a concentration camp by Einstein.
Really?
Made a meager living all his life as a one-man show. He would say, "My name right now is Theodore, and I was born 2 years after the discovery of dirt." And then he tells out about an abortionist, and in her hand she held the tool of her trade, a long black hat pin. She stabbed it into my eye. I laughed. It was my glass eye.
Is he still around?
No, he died at about 92, all alone in a little apartment in New York.
How do you feel about having to dismantle the collection and eBay and all the collection that you wanted to be a museum someday and will it to the city of LA? What are your thoughts about how it all got dispersed and it's on sale on eBay now and things like that, and private collectors?
Well, it makes me very sad that people who could have afforded to create the museum, like Lucas and Spielberg, they never came to my rescue. It should have been right here in Hollywood, but the next best thing is that about 101 pieces of my collection survive in the $20 million science fiction museum in Seattle. good deal of the most special things are still here.
And would you like to see someday a museum?
Like after I'm gone, if somebody could purchase a place about this size and move this into it, some empty store nearby on Hollywood Boulevard.
Thank you, Forry.
Feel very fortunate that I discovered you or you discovered me.
Any other little tales you like to tell? I have a tape recorder rolling. Anything just up the top of your head?
Yeah, one of the most flattering moments of my life in Rio de Janeiro at a fantasy film festival. I was there with Fritz Lang, and at one point they showed Metropolis, and afterward the crowd all wanted Fritz to go up on the stage and fend questions. And he rose and he said, "Anything you want to know about Metropolis, ask my friend Forrest Ackerman. He knows more about it than I do."
That's pretty flattering. How did Mae Clarke come to happen to visit your house?
Well, originally I wrote to her just as a fan to get her autograph, and then I guess I got her address, and I drove by and met her personally, and she kind of worked into my life. So eventually I invited her to meet me in my original Sherborne Ackermansion. I remember she told me she kind of regretted having acted in Frankenstein. She thought it was kind of an evil film. I tried to dissuade her from that notion.
Really, I never thought as the monster being evil. You felt sorry for him, if anything. Poor misunderstood creature.
Boris Karloff said he got a lot of letters from little children. "We know you were bad, just people picked on you."
The outcast.
One of the most remarkable things ever happened to me when I was editing Famous Monsters. A little boy sent me a penny. He said, "I send you this penny out of my love." That meant more to me than if a millionaire sent me $100. I think a little boy would do that. When I took that 8,700-mile drive all over the country, zigging and zagging back and forth to meet as many of 1,300 fans as I could, I went 35 miles out of my way to Niles, Michigan, because the boy had written me, "Mr. Ackerman, if you'll visit me, there will be 50 here for you." Well, there was one boy and 49 sheep. They proudly had these sheep run up and down the hill to entertain me. There's one villain spread a dastardly lie. He said, "You know why Forrest Ackerman took that trip? It was to steal stills from kids from Bride of Frankenstein." You know that wonderful issue all about the Bride of Frankenstein?
Issue 21.
Where do you think he got all those stills? The only problem is the issue in which I stole all those stills appeared the month before I took the trip.
Time travel, huh? I didn't know you were into time travel.
Fella has a video store a couple blocks from here. Let's see what his name is. The fella goes out of his way to badmouth me, anything he thinks of. He once said I stole the Metropolis robot from UCLA. Well, of course, they never had it in the first place for me to steal. One time on the spur of the moment at a convention, Jim Warren put me up on a pedestal. What am I bid for an hour with my editor? He still has good teeth, and so to my astonishment, a good-looking young girl bid $60 and got an hour with me.
Is that Lucy
pardon?
Chase? Is that Lucy Chase Williams?
That's right. Next convention, I no sooner got in the hotel, I got a phone call from Philadelphia. Little boy said, "Oh, you are going to be auctioned again, aren't you, Mr. Ackerman? I've saved up $90. My gosh, I would talk to any kid for free, you know. He doesn't. But I guess I better not disappoint him. So the auction started 50, 60, 70, 80, and there was 2 rows back. There was one fellow bidding against my youngster. It got up to $90, and that's all the money the little boy had, and he was looking desperately at his mother like, "Can I go another 10? The auctioneer, Walt Doherty, came to me. He said, "What do you say we call it quits at 90 and give each boy an hour with you?" I said, that's a great idea, sure. So it was arranged at 11 o'clock that the 2 boys would come to my room and spend an hour with me. And a young girl came to me and said, "Oh, Mr. Ackerman, can I interview you?" And I said, "Sure, honey, I'll be all day tomorrow here available." "Oh, dear, I have to leave the first thing in the morning." And I said, "Well, tell you what, you come at 11 o'clock when the winners are going to interview me, but I'm sure they wouldn't object to your being here." Well, the 2 boys came in. One boy got the big eye for the little girl. He spent his hour over in the corner smooching with her. The other boy was pouring his heart out to me. He was a victim of a psychiatrist's couch. And he said, "Oh, I'm telling you things I've never even told my parents or my psychiatrist." Next morning at the breakfast table, the 2 boys wrote me a little letter. "Greatest night of our lives."
All right. Yeah, I read the story about how you were the record an evening with Boris Karloff and friends, and how Vern Langdon.
Yeah, well, Vern called me, said, "Mr. Karloff is in town for a day. Don't think it'd be a great idea to get him to record a music album?" I said, "Yes, I sure agree." And he said, "Well, will you give a little listen? I've written a potential script for him." So what he had written was, you hear a squeaky door, and Boris Karloff said, "I bid you welcome. Oh, be careful of the spiders. They're my friends, you know." I said, "That sounds okay to me." He's been hamming it up in some films like The Raven and Tales of Terror. I guess he would go for that. Well, at 11 o'clock at night, Vern called me. Oh dear, tears were dripping out of the telephone. Boris Karloff let me down very gently. He said, no, dear boy, I'm afraid that's not my cup of tea." So I commiserated with him, and Vern said, "I'll be right over." I said, "Over? Well, what for?" going on 11:30 at night. Well, Karloff said if by tomorrow morning I can show him a new script, one that he likes, he will stay an extra day and record it. And I thought, by God, where in the world overnighter you're going to get a script? As I see it, you get two collaborators who have Emmys, and they meet on the golf course, and between rounds they talk it over, and about 6 months later they finally have a script. and but not overnight. Vern says, yes, you're going to do it. I'm going to do it. I never wrote a script in my life for a phonograph record. Well, I said, what do we know? Apparently Karloff doesn't like any funny stuff, so let me think about things that I've heard him say and then kind of feed his words back to him. Maybe he'll feel comfortable. So I started to type, and Vern wanted to look over my shoulder and see the wonderful words coming out of my fingers, and I said, no, go out to the piano, give me some mood music from the Mummy. So he went out, da 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 da. 2.5 hours later I wrote the end, and I thought, oh, I don't suppose anybody will ever know that we even attempted this. But the next day Vern called all excited. Oh, Karloff likes it, his wife loves it, his agent says great. Be at the studio at 10 tomorrow and you can hear it happen.
All right.
So I was there when he recorded it. And he came to one word that he was unfamiliar with, and I realized, while he had been the Frankenstein monster and a ghoul and a variety of monsters, he had never played a werewolf. And I'd used the fancy Latin word lycanthrope. So I told him how to pronounce it, and he did that just perfectly. Then, to my horror, sometimes people will say, oh yes, the Bride of Frankenstein, Elsa Lancaster. And I say, no, Chester, Elsa Lancaster. Oh, well, he mispronounced the name of Ernest Thesiger. He said Thesinger. And I was about to speak up. I hated like a student to correct the principal, but he snapped his fingers and corrected himself, no Thesiger. So after the recording was over, we all clustered around him, and one fan, realizing his 80 years, said, oh, Mr. Karloff, you've just done the job of a man about 1/3 of your age. How do you account for that? He said, well, I don't know, gentlemen. I guess just good, clean living up to the age of 6.
That's a good story.
You know, Hedy Lamarr was notorious for her first film in Czechoslovakia where she ran naked through the woods, and in a pool was naked. As a matter of fact, her husband tried to buy up all the prints and destroy them, but at least one got loose. The film was called Ecstasy. And one time I was at a music store looking through thousands of albums, and I came across one called Ecstasy. Just then I smelled a fabulous perfume, and I looked up, and there across from me was Hedy Lamarr.
Oh my.
So there were about 6 copies of Ecstasy, so I arranged all of them, so when she came around, her eyes would fly open to see all these ecstasies. But unfortunately, somebody came and grabbed her. Come on, Hedy, come on, we're late. So the magic moment never happened.
Still pretty magical, though.
A character actor named George E. Stone. He generally was the little rat Fink in Warner Brother gangster films. I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard one night. An elderly gentleman came walking along with a gorgeous blonde on his arm. I got about 6 feet beyond, and I thought, I believe that's George E. Stone. So I turned around, went back, tapped him on the shoulder. I said, aren't you George E. Stone? Well, what about it? Oh, I just wanted to say I always enjoyed your performances. Well, I'm pretty busy right now. Probably costing him $100 an hour for the woman on his arm.